Yes, much better. So we'll go back because the other bits discarded. We want to talk about the use of the deceased in scams. We get quite a lot where they say, that we'll say that he died in a car accident, a bike accident, and the victim will say, oh yes, he knew about that. The army staged his death because the Taliban's were after him. Now that's quite distressing because it was a very, very upset death, Rob Stevens. So Sandy, go back to
well, we've got Josh Young. He was military. He was out of the military. The poor man had PTSD and was trying to deal with that, plus deal with victims contacting him. Yes.
No, that it upset him a lot.
So he did pass away in 2019.
But we've got to put, I want to put the bit on the end of this as well. Josh Young said to me that he disguised it, that he changed his appearance so that nobody recognized him.
Yeah, I saw that.
Quite a big beard. It hadn't really changed his appearance very much at all, but I didn't like to tell him. But he was a very nice man, but he was a very troubled man. And Joshua took his own life. And that's got to be, I don't want to make a big thing of it, but I think it's important because we will never know how much scams, if anything, or it could have been everything. We'll never know how much being involved in scams pushed him over the edge because he didn't like it.
Well,
he hated it.
So many tried to contact him and he could not help them. There was nothing he could do. So there's another feeling of helplessness for him as well. So, it could have been PTSD, it could have been scams, it could have been, right.
I think it was a bit of everything. Yeah. Because he was a nice guy. I mean, he was such a gentle guy. And, his friends would say about, they wish people wouldn't contact him and that sort of thing. And I mean, you just saw that. I'm not saying that, we were told that. But they used to talk about it openly. And it's awful how much of being used in scams pushed him on the edge. Because I hope nothing, saying I hope it was the PTSD sounds awful. But that man was so upset with life. And that's sad. And they still use it. We'll on later of who we're talking about, so that you actually. Josh is the one.
Yes, he does. He does have beautiful blue eyes. The next on our list is Rob Stevens. He passed away in 2019 of a very sad, sudden accident. And
simply one night on his motorbike.
I think he was going back to base or something, if I remember right.
All I remember about it was somebody had the police said that he'd taken the corner too quickly. It was a lovely night. It was a nice sunny night. You could see for miles and everything, but he'd taken a corner too quickly, and there was a large broken down SUV behind it, and he just went into them. It was nobody's fault, absolutely nobody's fault, just as it happened. We'd asked Rob a couple of months, 2 or 3 months previously, to do us a video about being used in scams, meaning about 5 minutes, and it was about an hour and a half. So it just kept going on, and so I mean, and he kept calling himself SSG Stevens all the way through and forward. But he has he left beautiful babies behind, real babies, little ones.
Yeah.
Very young wife, and very loving family, the family were very close, weren't they? I remember his parents. They were all a very family, and it was really difficult for his friends and his family to, well, get used to it, because it was so sudden.
Yes, and to keep having this thrown up in their faces, and their son being used over and over again, and it has to do with all of the families of these deceased people. To see their family member being used by scammers over and over again, that has got to hurt and affect their lives. And what about the ones with young children when they grow up and see that their dad or loved one is being used?
And of course, they use the children as well, because there's a problem with, when he's a little boy. And they using it, of course they will, because it gets them money. But yeah, I mean, he will never age. Those children will never age. But I know, and it gets me angry that, sometimes they'll say, oh, I've been talking to some, the Kelvin Smith. You go on Facebook for any name and you will find a list of faces that we, and Rob is, off in those. And I always think that if you're a member of his family and you think, I wonder if so-and-so's on Facebook, and go and have a search and then get a completely strange name, but with Rob's pictures.
Yeah, it really should. And, to think of the victims that search for the real men and women, to come across a family member's Facebook page or Instagram account and contact them and have it rubbed in their face over and over and over again. So they're victimized over and over as well.
I mean, yeah, I've heard of his mother being contacted, and the question to his mother was, is your son dead? Now, if that had been me, oh, sorry, it seems I'm breaking up. If that had been me, I'd have been straight through the screen and throttled them. People are senseless, insensitive is the word I'm looking for.
They're worried about their own closure. They're not worried about what's happening at the other end, to the family of the deceased. They want their own closure. That's what we hear over and over and over again. Closure should know. Closure should be speaking to the pictures. It should not matter who the man in the pictures is. For his family, and especially because Rob's obituary is very easy. If we've told you, that they've died, oh, you've just looked up that they've died, you should not be contacting family and saying, is he dead? I mean, that's just common sense. We don't deal with a lot of common sense, Sandy. We don't. We also have another one, Ryan Sweezy. And he is one that we did not touch upon last time we spoke. I'm not sure of the situation, behind his death or what it was. But I'm thinking 2019 as well. And I know he is still used. You can just type in Sweezy in the search bar and go down and find a list. Yeah, because we've had him recently. That's kind of what reminded me of him, was that. I'm trying to think, because I know I put something on here of him, and he was another one that died very young. And look at their faces. They've got baby faces. I think my daughter-in-law's home. Yeah, my daughter-in-law's home. No, all I've got about him is, it was with sadness we have to tell Brian, 40. He died at his home this weekend. Brian cancer many years now,
we ask,
Right.
please, do not come. You know, I think some people who are used to have faces that you could tell they're nice people, and he was like that, wasn't he? Very easy smile, and
He kind of reminds me of like a gentle soul. I don't know how to explain it other than that.
Yeah. Yes, I would agree with that. And 40, it's just horrendous, Sandy. I mean, we've got kids that old, right? Well, I've got kids older.
Okay, well, we've got Brent Taylor, and
Brent Taylor.
It really is. He was the mayor of Ogden, Utah. He had a wife, and I'm believing 7 young children, and he was killed in Afghanistan in 2018. So that's a sad situation, and he is another one. You can type his name in, and you will find a list.
You can type any name in, and it's got his picture.
And he's one. You talked about the kids. When they get older, they're going to see their dad on social media, and it's not him. How sad for them to find out this is happening with their dad's photos. In fact, it's been long enough that some of the kids are probably close to teenagers and may have social media.
One particular picture of him, and he sat on the porch of his house, and it's him and his wife and all the children around them, and the caption I keep seeing is, I miss her, R.I.P., which I never like them doing that because it's sick, but to be actually do it when it's Brent is
it is it's sad. And his wife was beautiful, is beautiful. His children are beautiful. Another one, very distinguished man that, fought for our country and was, and I hate to say this, killed in action. And scammers use that. And of course, they use the excuse, his death was faked. But it wasn't.
No. And my sons keep sending, I don't want any messages for him for an hour. Right. It keeps coming to the top of my screen. And scammers, we've said before, we know they're heartless. Absolutely know they're heartless. And I'll say it again, that they use these pictures because the people in the pictures are
they're just a set of photos.
I mean, I think I told you the other night, I had one, they like to phone me for some reason, and he was using yam, German yam. And I said to him, I said, do you not care that you are using a life and pretending to be him? And this Nigerian said to me, why is he dead?
I mean, just a casual question to them.
Yeah, it was like, has he got blonde hair? Oh, is he dead? And we can't get through to people how sensitive and hard scammers.
Yeah, I mean, they are heartless. And I mean, they're heartless anyway, but to use these deceased people over and over and over, like I said, you've got the families, then you've got the victims that find out, this person they thought they loved is deceased. And, so there's heartache all around. I guess, another one that is well used, and everybody's seen the movie with him, Sniper. You've got Chris Kyle. And
because there's some, not necessarily Chris Kyle, but, sort of quite distinguished ones where he stood and he's looking out and he's got the gun and everything. And there's some great,
And I know he actually got out of the military in 2013. He had PTSD.
Yep.
He helped other veterans with PTSD. And of course, in doing this, he was killed trying to help another veteran, which is really sad.
When you think of all that Chris Kyle did in his life.
If you sit and look about it, and I do remember his funeral procession being on TV, and you can still see it on YouTube. I mean, it was huge, and it filled the Dallas Stadium, you know, with all the people wanting to see this American hero. And I mean, it's just amazing the turnout for him, and you know, some of the younger generation has no idea who he is, and some of the very older generation has no idea who he is. You know,
it was a sort of niche film. I mean, if you went to see that movie, you were sort of a certain age and you liked action films. So it missed, you know, the movie actually missed the people who would be the victims. Right. You know. No, but he was a very distinguished looking guy. I wouldn't argue with him.
I wouldn't either. And, you know, he had a wife and 3 or 4 children, maybe more. I can't remember that one for sure. Yeah. But I mean, I remember his story because of the film, but also they did a documentary on him. I've also done, you know, read a few articles, but his funeral was the thing that got me the most, you know, that I remember the most was his funeral, because I mean, people lined up and down interstates with flags and you know, motorcycle clubs with flags, and all these people just paying their respects to this American hero. And
yeah, and so and then we've got our scammy friends who have no value for life at all, who are so heroic that they sat in a hotel room with their shirts off and a bottle of brandy telling lies to women. Think of the difference between the two males.
I mean, you're not going to see the scammers standing off the side of the highway holding, you know, American flags, and no, they don't pay respects like that. They have no respect.
No, they'd have to move out of the rooms and, you know, walk. Yeah, anything unless they're showing off the bright green clothes. But no, and you know, it's. I always think, you know, Sandy, that scammers always pretend to be extremely religious.
Yes.
Until it comes to religious for their own ends.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, if people would do their research,
you know,
they've changed the 10 Commandments. They are nothing like, say, what they are in, you know, the actual Bible. And most religions, you know, follow a 10 Commandments, and they're very similar. But theirs are not.
They changed the 8th commandment, which is thou shalt not steal. And they changed it to thou shalt honor thy neighbor.
Yeah. Well, if they honored thy neighbor, they would be sharing their wealth and improving that country.
They do nothing for their country.
They honor them by flashing them their fancy clothes and their purses. And
a stolen
money.
A stolen money. That's what gets me. So
now, we have another one that I just learned his story yesterday, and it really brought tears to my eyes to even think about it. His name is Weston Lee, and I won't mention who his best friend is.
Oh.
But his best friend really had a hard time adjusting with it. But Weston Lee was actually, he died in, let me see, 2018, or maybe 19. Anyway, it was by an IED. And
yeah, literally on patrol, just walking down a
Right.
path.
And another honorable man that gave his life for the United States. You know, which is really sad.
But there was a picture just before he went, and it was a picture of him and his little girl, and he stood there, and he's, you know, because he had muscles and tattoos, as they all do. He stood there with the sort of no shirt on, but I think it was just because of the weather. And he had this little girl, and Weston had the most beautiful smile.
Yeah,
Really, you could tell
he was a very nice looking
smile.
young man, young again.
Yeah, yeah. He was, but he hung out with everybody. You know, he was a gym bunny, so they all went to the gym together. They were all very close, and there was a massive disbelief when Weston died, because it was sort of like, it doesn't happen to anybody you know. And the person that we know that we're talking about, he couldn't quite get his head around it, because it doesn't happen to anybody you know. It was like unreal that he'd gone and he wasn't coming back. And he is still, I mean, we still get quite a lot on Instagram.
And I have seen him, but I did not know his name and did not know his story until yesterday. So yeah, another sad situation again, and it was a sudden situation, so hard for family and friends to grasp all of a sudden, and then now to turn around and see him used by scammers. I mean, honestly, if it was my child, and I saw something like that, I mean, I would probably break out into tears every single time.
Yeah. And I mean, it was like, you know, he apparently was a great guy. He was a great leader. And, you know, he got all sorts of bravery medals posthumously, because he never came back to get them. But what really struck me with Weston is when you see him and he's smiling, he's doing all these things, and he's getting on with everybody, and he's a leader, and he's a soldier, and he's going on patrol, and you've got some little filth in some hotel rooms pretending
to be the honorable him.
Yes. And you know, it's sick. It really is very, very sick. But yes, as I say, I'll quickly put some pictures up this evening, so that people can see who we actually mean. I'll put an apology on for the families, and I'll explain again, you know, why we've done this, because we're trying to not to distress anybody.
You know, the families of these deceased need to know that why we're saying these things and trying to warn others is because it's out of love. You know, because we love these men and women, and we love their families, but you know, and we want to help. That's the huge thing. We love and we want to help. It is not the way for the little criminals sitting in the hotel rooms and the cafes, and you know.
Yeah. It is distressing. It is totally distressing to see them. Have you got Harry Green?
There's a few others that I do not have listed because I don't know a lot of names.
I've only got two, because I knew you had the others. This is Harry Green.
I have seen him.
Yeah. Well, Harry, unfortunately, he was an awful death, because he was killed in a camp in Afghanistan. And the US Army had taken a big group of Afghanistan army people, and they brought them in, they'd uniformed them, they'd armed them, and they were training them. And Harry was one of a group of American officers who'd gone to visit to see how it was going, who was doing a troop inspection. And one of the Afghanistan soldiers opened fire. But in the base, they were not outside. This was not anything outside. This was an internal thing. They were in the base, and this Afghan soldier that was being trained and equipped at the cost of the US Army turned round and fired. And he went, you were talking about Chris Kyle's funeral. I remember Harry's. And what got me was when they were carrying the coffin into the aeroplane. You know, it was, to me, it gets almost unbelievable.
You know, to see all of the soldiers standing there saluting the coffin, knowing that's going to be their last time to see anything of his, except for his grave in the U.S.
Yeah. I know. Yeah. And you know, to go out there and you know, really speaking, to be walking around the military base, you should feel secure as you can be anywhere in a war zone. But you know, you're in your own base. You are doing something good for the soldiers of that country. And one of them turns around and opens fire. You know, I think he probably died of 1,000 bullets, this man, but that's beside the point, because Harry Green died as well. And I thought that was apparently he was one of these people that if he went anywhere, he always sort of like made it his job to get to know everybody's name and remember them. And I thought, oh, that he would be good for doing this, wouldn't he? And you know, he was a very, very well liked man, and it took 1 second.
And you know, take his not a lot of higher ranking officers will take the time to learn names, you know, speak to their, you know, platoon or troop or, you know, whatever they're called. I'm not sure of some of the lingo.
It's like somebody, it's the same sort of thing. Place where if they get killed overseas, they come back to, and then what they do, they parade the hearse and the coffin through the town, and people go and pay the respects, which I think is a good thing to do. It shows them that, well, I know they don't know, but we know that, you know, we're showing them respect. But yeah, I mean, Harry, as you say, Harry took time for people, and you know, that's a big thing. It is a very big thing. Have you got any more on your list?
Actually, I would start moving away from military. And I've got one big one that I have seen a lot of lately, and his name's Luke Dutton. I bet I pulled almost 100 accounts under the name of Larry Dutton that were all fake. And that was just Facebook. I didn't look on Instagram. This poor man, you know, he had depression. He fought it for a long time, tried to be positive. And I'm sorry, he did try to take his own life one time by jumping 8 stories or something. It broke his legs. He healed. You know, and still going through depression, and you never know what anybody that has depression, what they're going through, because you know, you're not walking in their shoes. And you know, he had a loving family. I don't think he had a wife and children, or I haven't seen anything.
I think it was his sister seemed to do all the talking after he died. It seemed to be his sister. But you know, he's used a lot because he's an engineer, and so he's a lot of engineer. You know, he's got high-vis jackets, he's got hard hats. He's a proper engineer. We go back to our friends in the hotel.
On the water a lot. So of course, you know, it's an oil rig or you know, a ship engineer, or you know, so but he actually I saw several pictures of him with fish. So he must have liked to fish. But after finally trying to take his own life once and fighting depression again, he finally decided to try and take his own life again. It did not turn out well, and I'm sorry for the family. He ended up in a coma for quite a while, and the family had to finally get together and decide to pull the plug because he was never going to recover. And that's only been a few months ago.
No, they said, they said it. I mean, I remember, because it was Michelle from You've Been Scammed that was talking to his sister, and I remember her saying that he's never gonna come out of the coma because he's vegetative state. Can't say that. And so he was never going to come round, and we kept seeing him time and time.
And he is what. Actually, we all need to be alert for all of these fake profiles on all the men and women used. But to me, the deceased is even worse than the living. And I again, I'm sorry to say something like that, but it is so disrespectful to the deceased and their families to do something like this.
And I'll go back to saying about our wonderful little Nigerians and Ghanaians who are so religious, and they praise God, but I'll use a dead man to try and steal some money. Just shows how religious they are. Really,
we all know what God they really, really look up to is the God of money.
Yeah, the God of dollar. The last one I've got is Ray Odieno.
Oh, I've seen him too.
Yeah. Now, Ray is a bit like Harry in the fact that he's used on a lot of Eastern European ladies. The Eastern European ladies like the idea of having a general. And so they use all the generals. And everybody knows Austin Scott Miller by now. But Ray and Harry are used a lot on the Eastern American ladies. Now, Ray died on the 8th of October 2021, and he died of cancer. It wasn't in a war, it wasn't anything that happened to him like thousands of others. Ray got cancer, and he never recovered from it, and it took his life. And you go on Facebook and Instagram now, and you will find Ray Odieno.
Yeah, I mean, that's an odd name, so it would be really easy to search for if somebody would, wanted to look for fake profiles and turn them in. I know there's another one I learned of today, but I do not have a name yet. And if we can find out a name, we'll add him. But from what I understand, he actually passed away from COVID. Yes, and so it's been recent. And that's sad too, because there's probably several that we don't know of that are being used is not as big as some of as much as some of the others.
I mean, Timothy Steele being used quite a lot, and I remember him simply because of the picture that I've got of him, and he's got like a dress uniform on, and he's standing there. He's very, because he's very, very handsome but very military. And I showed you a thing that we had the other day, and thankfully over the years, ones that are deceased have dropped. The ultimate frustration is no accountability.
No,
there's no accountability.
At this time. There's no accountability to social media. The big companies, Meta, Google. I mean, all these dating sites, they have no liability as to what goes on their sites. And then there is no justice because you can't press charges against, the scammers. Not unless they're in your own country, and usually it's not the scammers, it's the money mules.
Oh, did you see? I put an article on this afternoon about one being arrested in the US, Nigerian, who got American citizenship and still kept scamming. I wonder if he claimed that, you know, it was because of poverty. No joke. But yeah, so there are plenty of them, and we want you to know. I mean, we want you to know for a few reasons. One, it is pure. And the thing is that they tell you that they're deceased. We actually don't make up stories. We tell you they are. And don't come backward. But he said.
I mean, change that sentence from "but he said" to "the scammer said," and start saying it that way, and it will start making sense if you replace it with "the scammer said." Even if you use a name and keep saying, you know, John Smith said, and keep using that name, replace it with "the scammer said."
Yeah. And, you know, I have again a thing about, you know, if we say, what is a scammer? People will come back and say, I asked a lady yesterday, somebody who tells lies and steals money. Yes, but what does he look like? And that's because they don't see them.
But, you know, we do. And the ones that are accidentally in the profiles, we do post those on our page. So look at those. Look at what is getting all the money. I mean,
because if we put one on who was, you know, if we put this on, he's scamming as, I don't know, Josh Poulter. It is somebody very similar,
right,
who's scamming you. It's not Slavian and the other one was Nigerian. You know, what we show, if it's not the very same scammer, it is the same type of person that is scamming you.
And so, you know, if I send pictures of them to the victims that come and talk to us, I will say this is an example of what you are actually talking to. And you know how many people that makes sick? I mean, it really is nauseating when you think about you're talking to these little skinny, sweaty, you know, criminals telling you lies, and it's not the honorable man or woman in the photo.
No, and as I say, I have to say, because they do like to come, I think it's the same gang, or a couple of gangs, who've decided they're going to scam me, or annoy me, I don't know which. And, you know, sometimes I answer, sometimes I don't. If I don't, they just keep doing it. And if I block, they'll come back with a different one. So usually I give them a bit of abuse. But, you know, if you do talk to them and you do give them a bit of abuse, all you hear in the back room full of laughter.
They don't care. They think it's funny. You know, if people say, well, I'm going to give them what they gave us. They don't care. Not at all.
No, and it's, you know, that funny old grey-haired woman's abusing us again.
You might see yourself on YouTube if you've done that, because they will post the videos.
Yeah, they will. But no, and I don't go on video chat. I have never appeared on a video chat with a Nigerian. I prefer voice.
Voice is very effective.
Yeah, and also it tells you what they are. And every single one. And you know, Sandy, people say to us, how do you know the Nigerian? We know.
I mean, you can look at statistics. The #1 country is Nigeria. And that is a statistic, a fact. But the ones that we come across and that, you know, we have talked to or we have seen that have left their photos in the fake accounts, they are Nigerian, a few Ghanaian mixed in.
Yeah. And it always comes back to that. We have somebody on messages just earlier, and you know, it was a big scam, and she was saying, oh, it was in England, this and he was that and he was the other. But then when you got down to it, they referred her to somebody in Facebook Nigeria. I said, you won't have ever talked to anybody in Facebook Nigeria. And so then she started to tell me the stories that this admin had told her. Of course, she wasn't talking to Facebook Nigeria, but as soon as you mention that word, you know exactly where your scams come from.
And actually, they'll say that they're stationed in Africa. So, again, that the scammers are from that area.
Yes. They're loud and clear. Peacekeeping mission to Nigeria. There's no peace. They're not at war. Well, okay, the Boko Haram sort of, nice people and they kill a few. But do your research. Somebody said on messages just before I came on, so she didn't get a full reply. They should make a movie of all the people who don't do their research. What's on everybody's name?
Good grief, if they made a movie of everything that we have seen, and the movie would continue forever.
It'd never be late.
It would last all day long, all night long, and forever, because that is what we see.
Yeah. And the stories that we get, people would say, that can't have happened. That can't have happened. You've made that up. I often say that nobody believes all the stuff that we get. But, it's so many, 100% of the time, it goes back to there. It would be a serious movie, exactly. I mean, it would be a soap opera that lasted 20 years, actually. But yes, I mean, it does all go to that corner of Africa, to West Africa. And you get I only did it because of the poverty. I've got nothing else to do. This is the first time I've ever done this. My friend got me into this. I won't do it again. If you help me. Help is pay. The rest is a script.
Exactly.
Like So Sandy, I'll put this on a video and I'll put some pictures on, on there as well, so that we do show people what we know. People about the fact that we know the scammers, know these guys are deceased. It's not that they can't say, oh, sorry, I didn't know. Won't use them again.
Well, they've used them often enough, they do know.
They just don't care.
I mean, it might not be in the packet they buy, but after they've used them that first time, they find out really quick and they don't care. So just keep in mind, everything a scammer does, it all leads to money. They do not care about you. They do not care about the person in the photo. They do not care about the families. They just want the money.
The person that we're talking about with Western Lee. Now, Joe sent me something last year, and it was on the anniversary of his death, which a certain person has a great deal of difficulty with, and goes to Arlington every year to pay his respects. And she sent me a profile of Western. Wasn't that name, but it was using Western, and there was a picture of the person at the gravestone, but you couldn't see the name on it. Or could you see the name on it? Because they had him on a different name. And on the caption on Instagram, it was showing where he'd gone with his friend to pay respects to his fallen friend. And I thought, I hope lightning strikes you down. Because I thought that was pure evil.
Actually, how many times a day do we wish lightning would strike them, or a flood, or an earthquake, or I hate to wish ill will on anyone. I really do, but these criminals they're just not worth it.
Yeah. I got into trouble last time I wished a bomb on West Africa. Not all people, and before everybody says, no, not all Nigerians are scammers. We're not saying that they are. but a good percentage of them are, and they're evil, and they can't. I don't care what you say, really don't, but they are. So I will thank everybody, and I'll put this on our pages and on YouTube. We hope that you will help us, because what I would like is when we put the pictures up of these people that and the names, if you see them being used,
right,
send them to us. So try and get them, especially as Sandy said about Dutton, because Luke Dutton is everywhere.
He is, and I mean that is not a common name. He is used under other names, but I was so shocked at, you know, the 100 profiles under Larry Dutton. That was just one name, you know. So keep looking, send them to us, help them, help their families, to see if we can't get rid of the fake accounts using them.
And if we tell you that they're deceased, please believe us. Because, you know, nobody stages a death. That's very silly. And, you know, it's beneath you to actually believe them. And but he said. So thank you very much, everybody. And, you know, it's a sad thing. We should never have had to even do this, Sandy. But, you know, we Sandy and I talked about it because of the number we were getting of deceased men that we were getting. You know, people say, talking to this picture, and then you've got to say, well, you know, deceased. So another, you know, another nail in the coffin of our lovely little scamming brethren, which is a way of putting it, I suppose. Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. Will you please hurry up then? So I will say good night at that, and I shall see you in messages, Sandy. Okay, bye. Thank you, everybody.